Now here with tomorrow's weather forecast is Tech Sergeant Salinda Larabee. Salinda?
Thanks, Tim. Once again today, Europe dominated by low pressure, the primary ingredient it takes to produce, once again, widespread cloudiness and stormy conditions. And taking a look at Turkey satellite imagery, at least today you enjoyed a relatively nice day, but for tonight's forecast and through tomorrow, look for the clouds to invade from the west. As they do, they'll bring with it a chance for showers. At least in the eastern portion of the Republic tomorrow, you can look for a return of fair to partly cloudy skies. You'll have one more day before you feel the effects of the storm. On today's weather chart in Europe, a huge variety of weather reported throughout the day. Everything from snow in the north to thunderstorms in the south, and very gusty winds made conditions just a little bit more on the changeable side too. And temperature-wise, definitely a huge variety there. Everything from low 30s in the north to upper 60s in the south. And in Germany and the Benelux, 40s and 50s everywhere, and very much scattered hit and miss showers and thunderstorms today. Unfortunately, a little bit more on the hit side than the miss side. But for tomorrow's weather, there is some improvement in sight. Unfortunately, the entire continent still continues to be dominated by lower pressure, so no one can really discount the chance of an isolated shower or two. But the primary rain zones tomorrow will remain in northern Germany, southern Germany with snow in the higher elevations. For the UK, Benelux, and central Germany, expect mostly cloudy conditions, but if you look up often enough, you'll be able to see some sun. Let's take another look at Friday's forecast. Expect showers in northern Germany and extreme southern Germany with snow in higher elevations. The UK, central Germany, and the Benelux will stay mostly cloudy, but only a slight chance for rain. Now, could it be that our weather conditions are going to clear up in time for the weekend? It sure looks that way, but stay tuned till tomorrow night. Have a great evening. You too, Tim.
Thanks, Sergeant Larabee. In financial news, the dollar was unchanged in trade against the German mark, so tomorrow at community banking facilities and credit unions, your dollar still buys you 1 mark 50 Pfennig. That's 1 mark 50 to the buck. Here's a look at some other rates. Many of us in Europe are getting smaller paychecks. The reason for that is a change in the cost of living allowance, or COLA. The amount of COLA we receive differs from country to country, but there is confusion for many in Germany, where the dollar recently hit an all-time low. Now, many people want to know, why doesn't the COLA rate go up when the dollar goes down? Sergeant Buddy Vickers tried to get the answer.
The dollar was higher in trading against the German mark. In Frankfurt today, the U.S. dollar was fixed at 1 mark 51.70.
It's not unusual around Germany these days to see people interrupting what they're doing to listen to the radio every weekday at 5 after 2 to hear the daily mark rate. That figure not only affects the rate of exchange at the bank, but paychecks as well. It's one factor that controls the cost of living allowance received by military and civilian employees living overseas. The Per Diem Committee in Washington recomputes the rates every 2 weeks using a rather complicated formula. In early October, the committee adjusted the COLA downward, a rate that affected October paychecks. USAFE officials insist that the drop was justified since COLA is paid retroactively.
When the Per Diem Committee meets, and what they're trying to do is project out approximately 2 weeks in advance. So that if they were, for instance, today going to say effective 1 November, the exchange rate will be a certain rate, then we would actually see that COLA rate change in our mid-month paycheck.
The COLA rate is based on an average cost of living at stateside basis. It's also supposed to average out over an 8-week period. The COLA rate set this summer, with the dollar dropping to all-time lows, were higher many days than the exchange rate. That reportedly averaged everything out.
But over an 8-week period, it's designed to all average out. So that we don't gain, we don't lose. Our purchasing power remains the same.
The COLA rates also take into account how many purchases are made on the economy. So, in places where people must shop on the economy rather than in commissaries or exchanges, the COLA rates are higher than in places like Germany where there's a choice. Sergeant Buddy Vickers, Air Force News, Ramstein Air Base, Germany.
The town of Apeldoorn, the Netherlands, is about a half-hour away from Schusterberg Air Base. Sergeant Rick Sarchet is about to take you to a place in Apeldoorn that's fit for a king and a queen.
Looking at Hedo Palace from a paved path, it's easy to imagine a courtyard full of knights and ladies, kings and queens, and horses and dogs. Well, it may not be so easy to imagine the dogs, but Hedo Palace was once used as a hunting lodge by the Dutch royal family. The public relations director for the palace says it was built in 1684 by King William III.
And they first lived in a castle nearby, but that was too small for all the personnel. So then they decided to build this palace in an open space in the wood. That means Hedo.
The palace was turned over to the state in 1814, but remains at the royal family's disposal to use for special occasions such as weddings.
And they do regularly, about 2-3 times a year they come here.
The last inhabitant of the palace was Queen Wilhelmina, the grandmother of the current Queen of the Netherlands, Queen Beatrix. But that's enough history for now. Let's let the paintings and furnishings speak of the past. The palace itself isn't the only attraction at Hedo. There's also an authentic 17th century garden, a garden once visited by knights and ladies and kings and queens. The horses and dogs, we assume, were not allowed. From Apeldoorn, the Netherlands, Air Force Sergeant Rick Sarchet, AFN News.
Incirlik Air Base's tent city is home to a hodgepodge of military members from Britain, France, and the United States. A number of those who call Tent City home are making their marks through art. Airman Leslie Gilderson spoke to one of the artists and tells us more.
When you arrive at Tent City, you're greeted by row upon row of sand-colored tents. The residents know this will be home for a while, so some of them have come up with a way to display their individuality and creativity, as well as break up the monotony of the view. They're painting their doors. One of the artists, Technical Sergeant William Ferguson, takes requests and designs the doors to suit the occupants. Another artist is Sergeant Marcus Riccardi, who says the painting gives him a project to work on in his spare time.
Well, I like to draw. I always like to draw. I'm a comic book collector, so I've seen that what people have been doing around, painting the tents, and for me, I guess, to stay out of trouble and on weekends just pass the time, I decided to start drawing, and little by little, it became something to do every weekend.
Stationed at San Vito Air Station, Italy, and TDY to Incirlik as a combined task force supply clerk, Sergeant Riccardi has been drawing and tracing for 14 years. He says working on such a large scale has its difficulties.
And the hardest thing to do is when you sketch on the doors, because if you make a mistake, you cannot really correct it that easily.
He gets his supplies on base, but this is the first time he's worked with oils. It can be rather time-consuming.
Usually it takes about 2 days to do the sketching and the painting. When you do one color, you usually have to wait a couple days to dry up, so you can go up to about a week before I can do finishing touches.
Sergeant Riccardi and the other artists say painting is one way to make Incirlik's Tent City a home away from home. Airman Leslie Gilderson, Air Force News, Incirlik Air Base, Turkey.
That's our report for this evening. Have a good night.